Hi, our video today is about writing effective thesis statements. Unlike your other papers you've done, this paper has a thesis. If you look at your sample, I tried to show it to you, but I'm having a glitch. You have a sample critical analysis. The first paragraph is simply a summary, and the very last sentence of that paragraph is the thesis. It's underlined in the sample. It need not be underlined in your paper, but it needs to be present. A thesis statement. Let's discuss a little bit about that. Thesis statement contains the topic, the subject. The subject you're writing about is the essay, Why You Can't Put Down Your Phone by Leon Nefka. And your point or opinion about his essay is the thesis. It needs to be one complete sentence. It can't be a phrase. It can't be just hanging there. It is complete. You should be able to say this to a stranger on the street and they'll understand it. Not that they'll care, but they'll understand what you're saying. It states an opinion. This is your opinion. Remember, you're judging this paper. That's what the critical analysis does. It actually should be called a critical analysis evaluation. You are pulling apart various pieces, but you're also ultimately passing an overall judgment on the paper and judgments about some of the details that you've analyzed. So you're going to state an opinion that later is supported in the body of the paper that you're going to write. It usually appears first in an essay, at least academic essays. It tends to. It's usually in the first paragraph, not always, and it's sometimes in the last paragraph. And occasionally it's implied. Don't you imply yours. You go ahead and write it, okay? And we'll discuss that in the next little encouragement that I'll film for you. And you could say it serves as a guide or a blueprint or a map for the paper. Maybe. That doesn't help you, think of it as a hyper summary of the paper. It's summing up your opinion about that paper and what you're going to say about it in one concise sentence. This is the sample from the thesis from the sample, and it's a fine thesis. Notice what is written here. While Randall's evidence is persuasive and eye-opening, his tone and references to political figures on TV may prevent some readers from accepting his claim despite such solid evidence. Nothing's wrong with that thesis. Now, this one, if you want to see how this one might prepare readers for what to expect, you'll notice that first she indicates she's going to be discussing evidence and tone and these various references to figures on TV, and that it's a kind of a mixed view, that it's persuasive, but some of the other approach in the writing might not persuade people to agree. Yours need not look like this, and frankly, you don't need to have, this is what's called a multi-point thesis. You don't necessarily have to have a multi-point thesis. You just have to have a main idea statement that clearly indicates your subject is Leon Nefka's essay. You can use it. Remember to use his last name. Don't call him Leon. If you're, by the time you get to that, referencing his name, you don't necessarily even have to do that, but remember just to use Nefka's last name after you introduce him, which you'll be doing in the very first sentence, I would think. After that, he's Nefka, not Leon. These are mistakes people often make. Not being clear and concise, making an announcement, being vague, or just not being flexible. This is not a clear, concise thesis statement. It's just too much here. It is one sentence, a legal sentence, I'll add. It's not a run-on, but it's just rambly, hard to follow, and it's too much. And let me tell you why. While Randall's evidence is persuasive and eye-opening most of the time, especially if his readers are already on board with his ideas, his tone, such as how he talks and sounds, and his references to political figures on TV, not actual politicians like Obama, but people who talk about politics on those shows like Fox News, may prevent some readers from accepting his claim despite such solid evidence. Going back to the concepts we've already gone over, a big problem with this thesis statement is it contains far too much in the way of minor detail. There are specific examples in this. Now, in a summary, the paragraph that you're writing that ends with not a summary, but with this thesis. And that whole paragraph, you shouldn't have minor details. You certainly shouldn't have minor details in the one sentence thesis statement. So make sure you don't go there. This I see too much, and especially on the first assignment, you weren't writing essays, but you were writing quite a bit as far as paragraphs, and a thesis is like a topic sentence for a bigger piece of writing. And in some of your topic sentences, I had statements like this. Today I'm going to analyze Randall's evidence, his tone, and references to political figures on TV. Don't announce what you're doing like that. Just go ahead and state it. In fact, I'll point out in this essay, you might do well just not to use first person. I don't think it's necessary. In the critical response, it was necessary. In the critical analysis, you can be the disembodied voice of expertise. You don't have to announce yourself, in my opinion, etc. You don't have to do that. Look at the sample and the way that the point of view works there. Vivian doesn't announce herself, doesn't even present herself really. It's almost like there's that disembodied voice of expertise, which is actually much more common to academic writing than a first person. You certainly don't want to make an announcement in first person like this. Being vague, this doesn't really say anything, and it's a cliche. At the end of the day, what matters most are his pieces of evidence, tone, and references to political pundits. What matters most? What do you mean what matters most? What is your opinion of that? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it effective? What matters most? This doesn't really say anything, as well as it being a cliche. Now, the final point I'd like to make is, as you're writing your critical analysis, if you find you're struggling to support your thesis and are having trouble finding quotes or writing paraphrases from the original used as evidence to support your thesis, you need to revise your thesis. I do want to mention that it's not here in this essay at this time. In other classes, it's very probable you will be asked to provide a thesis before you go very far at all. And the thesis is expected to guide your research. It's more of a multi-point, precise thesis. You need that to guide your research as you go forward, to guide your development as you go forward. In this paper, you really don't need that so much because, as you'll see, I'm willing to discuss that in the next video, it's structured for you. It's very plain, the kinds of things that you need to present. Those are the kinds of ideas that you'll be discussing. Your job in the thesis is to boil all that down to a one-sentence statement that sums up what you're doing with all those points. Do your best with it. Don't sweat it. Just do all the jobs. You might want to try a thesis now. Put it there. Don't sweat it, though, but do all the jobs on the subsequent sheet that I'll be showing you in the next video. Just make sure you go down that sheet and do it all. And then as you go through, you might want to reword your thesis to more accurately reflect what you did. Again, this is different from some academic writing you'll do in the future where you truly are expected to have a thesis, and that determines where you're going to go. In this assignment, once again, it's rare you get teachers who give you this much. I'm telling you exactly where to go on those sheets. We'll review that in the next video. And that's all I have to say about the thesis. So carry on, do your best. Remember, if you have questions, you can ask them. So shoot me an email. Make sure you make it plain what you're asking and put your phone number on it. Not a whole lot of people have done that, and I'm okay with that. But if you have a question, I want it to be answered, and that's how you can do it. If you find yourself confused, reviewing the materials is always a good idea because many times the answers to your questions, at least in my class, with what I'm giving you, are actually there in print. But if you're overwhelmed, shoot me a line and we'll fix it for you. Have fun.